Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'm Karina Iskandarova, and I welcome you to the 9th episode of the 4th season of the Defense ReDEFiNED podcast. Our guest for tonight is the international relations expert Nvard Chalikyan, research fellow at Applied Policy Research Institute of Armenia. Her current research focus is on the geopolitics of the South Caucasus, US-Russia relations, as well as Armenia's relations with India. She's heading the India-Armenian track, and she has many publications that have been featured and also as a speaker at the international conferences, with the latest being the Cyprus Forum 2025. Ms. Chalikyan holds a master's in philosophy in international relations from the University of Cambridge and a master's from the American University of Armenia. Let me allow our guest to enter the studio. Hi, Nvard.
Hello, Karina.
Welcome to our 9th episode. I'm so happy to see you, even virtually, and meet with you. Would you like to say some things for yourself?
Thank you so much. This is the first time I'm speaking to a Greek media, and it is a great honor that we have this opportunity. I believe our two nations are historically connected and that we are friends, and this is a very important moment as well to get to know each other better, and doing such interviews is something that we need, and it would be also good to do interviews for the Armenian audience with the Greek experts as well. This is something that we should take care about, but I'm really happy that you started this going.
I'm also very excited for today's podcast because we're going to discuss about Armenia and the day after, rebuilding security and sovereignty in a new regional order. I would like you, Nvard, to give some information about yourself, more information, and also tell us more about the Applied Policy Research Institute of Armenia.
So thank you for this chance. As you already described me very well, I don't have to add anything to that. But about Applied Policy Research Institute, this is a think tank that has been established in Yerevan, Armenia 3 years ago. And it is a quite vibrant think tank with a good recognition. And actually, several days ago, we learned that we are among 100 top think tanks of the world, according to the rankings. And this is something that we are really proud about. So we do foreign policy analysis. We're studying the really complicated South Caucasus region from various perspectives. We're looking at different foreign policies of the regional and global powers, like it's Russia, it's Iran, it's the United States, it's Turkey, and a lot of intricate things that are going on in the region today. So we are keeping an eye on it, and we also have many events, as well as our flagship APRI forum that is happening every year in June. We invite different speakers from different countries. So that is in a nutshell.
And congratulations also for becoming one of the biggest think tanks in your country, because it's not easy to have think tanks that provide researchers with the opportunity to talk about a lot of issues. And I would like to go now straight to the point and discuss about Nagorno-Karabakh, because we know the history, but I want more information because you're an expert in international relations. I want your expertise, your also experience, because you're Armenian. I want your point of view. Can you give us some information about the geopolitical situation that has happened in the region?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Let me be very brief about this background. The Nagorno-Karabakh conflict has been there for ever since the breakup of the Soviet Union. Basically, Armenia and Azerbaijan have been at war before that, and Nagorno-Karabakh unrecognized republic existed for about 30 years, up until 2020, when Azerbaijan decided to solve, quote-unquote, this dispute by the use of force and by launching a full-scale war against Nagorno-Karabakh. Basically, it succeeded to take control of the entire region in 2020 and in 2023 as a means of war and as a means of ethnic cleansing. This is a tragedy, and this is deplorable. And also it tells us that in this current world, unfortunately, it is again the might decides the right type of situations where we have a more powerful actor actually using force to solve the conflict that was mediated by many actors before, actually by OSCE Minsk group, and this was the result. So in 2023, all the Nagorno-Karabakh Armenians, 120,000, and the ones that were remaining, left Nagorno-Karabakh, and now there is not even a single Armenian left there. It's only the hostages that Azerbaijan keeps, and there are trials going on in Azerbaijan. But other than that, all the false trials, let me put it that way. And other than that, the ethnic cleansing is what happened. However, it was not only about Nagorno-Karabakh, because after they got what they wanted and they had there was no way of holding them accountable by any means. After that, they started pushing forward another narrative that is called this so-called Zangezur corridor narrative. Basically, maybe it would be easier to talk about all these issues when showing the map of the region, because it is quite complicated. And if you see, we are bordering Turkey, Iran. Armenia is right in between Turkey, Iran, Azerbaijan, Georgia. And Russia is also to the north. So we're not bordering Russia, but Russia is bordering Georgia. And so that is the very short picture of just a brief picture of the region, so that we know where we are. And when we're looking at it, we see that in these two maps, in the other photo, yes, here. So this is the first one represents the Nagorno-Karabakh, and the second one is after the 2023. Basically, we lost the control over the entire territory. So what you see at the southern part of Armenia is the Sunnic region of Armenia that is bordering Iran at the very end. So that is the only border with Iran that we have. And now, as you can see, Azerbaijan has greater opportunity, greater leverage, and it is also stronger militarily and in many other ways. And also, most importantly, it has the backing of Turkey, which is something that makes their position much stronger vis-a-vis Armenia. So what they want at the moment is Armenia to grant access through its territory from Azerbaijan to Nakhichevan, that is their exclave, which is bordering Turkey. Basically, because Armenia geographically is standing in between Turkey and Azerbaijan, they have always wanted to have this unification through Armenia, and this is, very broadly speaking, what is currently on the table when we're talking about the so-called Zangezur corridor project.
Okay, so would you like me to continue showing the map? Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, maybe just it was just that, but I will be speaking about that more as we go to the questions.
Allow me to continue now with the U.S. peace treaty, that the U.S. helping the peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan. I would like your opinion about your assessment as an expert, and also what does it really mean for the future of Nagorno-Karabakh and for the Karabakh Armenians who were forced to leave their homes? How does the loss of Nagorno-Karabakh affect the regional power balance, according to your opinion?
Well, power balance is the key word here, because right now it is very disproportionately in favor of Azerbaijan. And what we see with the US mediation is very interesting development, because before that there have been attempts of negotiating a peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and all of them have failed. But there was the peace agreement on the table, and what happened in Washington in August 8 is that our US President Donald Trump managed to bring the parties together, and what was signed was not a peace treaty as such, but it was the initialing of peace treaty, and most importantly, it was the trilateral declaration, which set several contagious points in paper, and one of those points is granting Azerbaijan access through Armenia's territory to Nakhichevan and to Turkey. Basically, that is enshrined in this document, but at the same time, the document says that Armenia is going to exercise full control over its territory and its sovereignty, and whatever road we give to Azerbaijan is going to be under Armenian jurisdiction, and it is going to be subject to Armenian checks and border controls. And it also introduces a concept of TRIP, which is Trump wrote for international peace and prosperity. We call it short TRIP. This is a new provision and very interesting development, because the Americans have suggested that American companies take part in the construction of this road. And that is something that's unprecedented in the region in terms of American presence potential. This is still on the paper, but it is something that is being really advanced by the US, and there is interest from all the parties. So the question is about the construction of this road and about American companies being involved on the Armenian territory and operating together with the Armenian authorities to allow this transportation route to pass through Armenia. So that is now what's on the table. However, at this point, the implementation of that has not started, and there are a lot of questions that need to be answered, because it is just a declaration. It is not a detailed treaty. What has been very positive, and we need to acknowledge this, is that the threat of use of force and the threat of escalation was quite high before this declaration was signed, and that is something that we also analyzed at APRI. And with the signing of this declaration, we believe that at least short-term or mid-term, this threat of Azerbaijan's use of force against Armenia, because they threatened to use force to open that corridor, the way they call it. And currently, we believe that there is this threat of use of force has gone down to some extent. So that is the situation that we have at the moment. However, they keep insisting that Armenia grants them a road that is not going to be checked by Armenians, which is ridiculous, because you do not grant a road to another country without having any checks on your border. And that is something that is still a point of argument, and a point that has not been verified, because Armenia has categorically refused any corridor logic, saying that that is against Armenia's national sovereignty, territorial integrity, and and also very importantly, it is a threat to Armenia-Iran border. And when you were showing the map, you saw that that section was just on the border of Iran and Armenia. So there are a lot of security issues that are related to this project that need to be addressed, especially given the track record of Azerbaijan that has been using force and has been trying to get a maximalist position and trying to force Armenia to give certain concessions which have already happened in other parts of Armenia. So it is a very dangerous and very tricky region, and it is what we need is to have more balanced outcome when we're talking about peace agreement, and what we need is to have a greater balance of power, basically.
Now that you gave me a very good comment about balance of power, and I want to ask you about the South Caucasus area, because we see Washington being very active in stabilizing the South Caucasus. How sustainable do you think and do you believe is this US engagement, and how does it reshape the regional balance of power, especially given that Russia's influence has been waning due to the recent war and Azerbaijan's growing confidence?
Yes, well, this is a region that has been dominated by Russia, and the regional powers, basically South Caucasus is Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. The three countries compose South Caucasus. And the bigger regional players are Turkey, Russia, and Iran. And Russia has been the dominant power for the last many decades, Soviet Union and even before that. However, what we saw with the Nagorno-Karabakh war, because well, let me put it this way. So the security architecture before the Nagorno-Karabakh war was that Armenia and Russia were allies, and that was a balancing factor against Azerbaijan and Turkey alliance. That was the calculation. However, when the war happened and Nagorno-Karabakh was lost to Azerbaijan, after that, Armenia started relying less on Russia because Russia was mediator in the ceasefire, and Russia also brought its peacekeeping troops to Nagorno-Karabakh. However, even the peacekeeping troops did not prevent the ethnic cleansing of 2023 that I mentioned. So following these events, basically, Russia's influence has been declining in the region because of that as well. But most importantly, it has been declining because of the war in Ukraine and because of all the resources being primarily thrown into the war in Ukraine from the Russian side. So basically, Armenia was faced with the choice of finding another another way of securing its of ensuring its security. And Armenia's policy has been diversification in terms of foreign and defense policies especially, and that is something that has prompted Armenia to look for weapons suppliers elsewhere because before that Armenia has been predominantly 95% or 99% dependent on Russia for its weapons supply. And after the 2020 war, this calculation has changed. Also, another thing that changed after the war was the role of Turkey. It has become more assertive because Turkey actually supported Azerbaijan militarily, politically, and by all possible means in the war. Turkish involvement in the war was not direct, but indirectly, it was very, very decisive for Azerbaijan's victory. So after that, Turkey has signed a declaration with Azerbaijan that has strengthened their already strong relations. And basically that was a de facto, like a defense pact saying that they are going to be defending Azerbaijan against any attack and that their defense systems are going to be integrated. So it is a very serious alliance that they have. And it has more implications. So Turkey is also interested in this Zangezur corridor, so-called, because it is also going to be playing into Turkey's foreign policy and into its more ambitious aspirations in the region and beyond.
Since you mentioned already Turkey, I want to talk now about the new steps toward normalization between Armenia and Turkey. How realistic is it full reopening of the border, and what are the main sticking points?
When we're talking about the Armenia-Turkey border, we should remember that this was closed by Turkey, of course, not by Armenia, and it was because of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. And Turkey always said that when Nagorno-Karabakh conflict is resolved in favor of Azerbaijan, then they are going to open the border. However, even after the Nagorno-Karabakh war, Turkey has not yet opened the border, and it has pledged to do so if there is a peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan, because it has Azerbaijan first policy. Understandably, Azerbaijan is much is what's driving also Turkey's policies towards Armenia, but of course, Turkey has its own calculations as well. It is not only Azerbaijani factor. There was in 2022 there was an agreement to open the border for the citizens of third countries. However, even that agreement has not been implemented. There are talks that this agreement is possibly going to be implemented soon, but I don't want to make any predictions on that, because the conversations about opening the border have been going on for many years, even before the Nagorno-Karabakh war. And basically, it is synchronized with the Azerbaijan's stance and Azerbaijan's demand, and we don't know where this is going to go. However, we are positive that maybe some changes will be taking place in the future.
Thank you for your answer, and let me continue with Cyprus and Greece, because we had an introduction. You know a little bit the background of.
Can I add something? I'm sorry.
Of course.
To the previous one. Just a sentence. So when talking about the opening of Armenia-Turkey border, that is also a question of debate in Armenian society, to what extent and how this is going to benefit Armenian economy. And there are also people that are saying that it is going to be a challenge for the Armenian economy, because obviously the size of Turkey is incomparable with the size of Armenia in terms of market and other factors. So it is also a debate in our society.
Thank you for the additional comment. Can you tell me about the way you see Armenia's ties with Greece and Cyprus? How do you see them evolving, particularly in the fields of defense and regional coordination?
Cyprus, Greece, and Armenia have been having really good relations for a long time. This is not new. Ever since Armenia got independence in 1991, that relations have been established, and it has been military-political relation, which is important. We are actually both civilizational states, and we share a lot of history that resonates with each other. We also have similar challenges, and we have, as I said, I believe we're natural allies, because we also have some intersections of interests that it would be good for us to pursue together. Military collaboration, it has been going on for quite some time, as I mentioned, but after 2020, there have been more official visits and more treaties signed between Armenia and Greece, and the Armenia-Greece relations has served as a basis and as a background for Armenia-Cyprus relations. And in 2020, actually, we had the bilateral cooperation program between Armenian and Greek ministries of defense that set a very good baseline for the continuation of the military collaboration. And in 2023, Greece and Armenia signed a military technical cooperation agreement that was called a top priority for both countries. So this is important. And what we see under this umbrella is military education, military technical collaboration, international peacekeeping missions collaboration. And we also were very happy to see that in 2024, Armenia, Greece, and Cyprus signed a defense cooperation deal that was already a trilateral deal, not bilateral. And it included several components like troops training, military education, joint exercises, advisory support. And the interesting thing is that the Armenian officers from the Armenian army were getting education in Greece for many years. That was not new, but after these agreements, all these other components that I mentioned have been added. And even military exercises have been conducted in 2021 and in 2023-24, if I'm not mistaken. They were called Olympic Cooperation 24 military exercises that took place in Greece, and Armenia was among one of the participants. So it is great that all these three countries have already established this format, and Armenia is currently undergoing an armed forces reform, and this diversification is very important for boosting the military capacity of Armenia and Armenian army, and this is a very important angle for developing Armenian military, because Greece and Cyprus are a member of NATO and EU, and they are introducing very important elements for improving what we already have, and that's important for us. And this would be unthinkable many years before, but now we are deepening the collaboration, and it is, I believe, it is in benefit of all the three countries involved.
More on the collaboration front, allow me to continue with this regarding France and India, because we saw that Armenia has signed arms deals. How do these agreements alter its defense posture and the broader military balance in the South Caucasus?
Very interesting developments with India we have been observing several years already. And Armenia have also had really good relations for ages, for centuries even. But again, after 2020, Armenia and India have started boosting their relationship and taking it to another level. And especially this was in the field of defense and in the field of security. So basically what happened was unprecedented, because Armenia started buying weapons from India. That never happened before. And these were weapons made in India, basically indigenous weapons. That Armenia purchased, and it's about $1.5 billion contracts with India. So as a result of that, India has become now a major exporter of weapons to Armenia. And its share in whatever Armenia is importing is about 50%. It's 60, 70 something of total Armenia's armed procurement, I mean. So this is obviously creating a very new phase in the Armenia-India relations, and India becoming more important for Armenia as a partner, because, as I said, this diversification policy is important. And at the same time, Armenia is also the largest buyer so far of Indian weapons, and India is trying also to sell its weapons to other countries. So basically, this is also commercially important case for India that is trying to position itself in the global market as a provider of weapons and ammunition. And Armenia, it's actually interesting, because when you're having relations in the defense sector, it can or cannot translate into other sectors, but what our ministers and government on both sides are doing is actually having more aspects added to the relationship, trying to boost the economy, for example, trying to facilitate other ties like trade, tourism, IT collaboration, and also enhance like training in military and defense topics as well.
Okay, allow me to add one more question, last question, and of course, in addition to that, add anything you wish to say to our audience. Taking all of this together, the peace treaty, shifting alliances, the new defense ties, what does a realistic roadmap to long-term peace and stability in the region look like for you?
Yeah, that is a very good prospect if it comes true and if it realizes, because the number one country that wants peace and doesn't want war is Armenia. I believe there are different aspects to answer this question. External aspects we can take into account that are going to affect the region. I believe they are Russia. Yes, its influence is reducing in the region. However, it remains a player that is also going to have an impact in the future, I believe. So a lot is going to depend on Russia, Iran, Turkey, how their relations play out, and also the US is becoming an important actor now. So US-Russia relations, when we're looking at a bigger picture, the war in Ukraine, how that is going to continue or to end, we don't know yet at the moment, but that conclusion is also going to impact the South Caucasus in a big way. Also, the relations of US and Iran are important to understand how things are going to evolve vis-a-vis Iran in the region, because that is an important player. And Iran has been also a supporter of Armenia's territorial integrity. And it has also been against any Zangezur corridor so-called logic, because Iran is also concerned about the threat to Iran-Armenia border, and that would not be at all a desirable outcome for Iran. So all these policies are going to matter. And also Turkey's role, if this road is built, it is going to be very important to watch out for how Turkey is going to play its card in this very specific case, because its ambitions go beyond the South Caucasus, and its ambitions go towards the connection of the broader Turkic world and also to the Central Asian countries. This would mean that Turkey is going to expand its influence, and that it is going to be more independent and more assertive player, which is actually going to affect all the other neighbors as well. Because if Turkey gets much stronger than it is today, then its policies in the Mediterranean and vis-a-vis other neighbors, including Greece and Cyprus, might also change. And that is something to have in mind, because stronger Turkey in general is going to mean a Turkey that is going to be less influenced by NATO or EU, and it is going to be more assertive in its various foreign policy endeavors. That is also something to take into account for the Greek and for Cypriot audiences as well, I believe. Yeah, but we are hopeful that the US involvement is going to stabilize the region. But here the key thing is that Turkey and Azerbaijan do not try to make this agreement as a way to have more concessions from Armenia and to try to get more territory from Armenia, because that is something that Azerbaijan has been signaling for quite some time, and it is quite worrisome. So it all depends on how things play out. And first and foremost for us, it is important that Armenia develops its military and economic capacity and continues to have good and friendly relations with friendly countries, and that it boosts its defense capacity, so that the balance of power is at least to some extent restored to as much as it is possible.
Nvard, thank you so much for this insightful information and the podcast interview. You gave us a lot of in-depth information and insights on a variety of questions I asked. And honestly, I believe it's also something that it's very close to you and personal. Would you like to close with a sentence, something you wish the audience to hear from you?
Well, as I said in the beginning, I'm happy that this interview is happening, and I'm happy that we are having more exposure towards what's going on in this region, and also we learn about your region. I was at Cyprus Forum just a little bit over a month ago, and that was the first time that I participated there. And for me, it was a really good discovery to see and to hear different perspectives from Cyprus. And as I said, I believe that we need to know more about each other, and I believe that we need to develop ties. You know, this is important. It is not only about governments, it's not only about ministries of defense, which are doing their job, but it's also up to people to build bridges and to talk and to have more in-depth understanding about each other, and also just to visit each other's countries. You know, that is something that I would encourage, and looking forward to more. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Karina. I hope to see you again.
Thank you as well.